Engaging in physical intimacy here feels great, doesn't it? Yeah. But Mary really is oblivious, isn't she? Totally. To think she hasn't realized what's going on between her husband and her sister. Laughter from the two of them followed. I stood in front of the room, fists clenched. I wanted to burst in and confront them, both naked. While I was thinking this, my sister Emma's voice gradually faded. It gradually turned into a whisper between them, and before long, her sweet voice echoed. I had reached my limit of patience. "What are you doing in my bed?" A rage I couldn't vocalize rose within me, and I quietly left the area to avoid making noise. Maybe I am dense. But I had a hunch about my husband's infidelity. I was afraid to acknowledge that he was cheating, so I did nothing. But being presented with undeniable proof woke me up. They shouldn't be forgiven. If I ran away now, it would stay this way forever. I didn't want to be looked down upon by anyone anymore. I decided to take revenge on them for myself. Thinking this, I quietly entered the living room. My name is Mary. I'm 27 and a preschool teacher. It's a tough job, but I've always dreamed of doing it and don't plan to quit. However, my husband Tom wants me to quit my job. The reason being, it's embarrassing, apparently. Since I'm earning, there's no need for you to work. He works at a food processing company owned by my father. He's a university graduate and a rising star in the company. Yet, he's embarrassed that his wife works and fears being mocked by his college friends. That seems to be his thought. Ironically, my sister Emma has said the same thing. But in her case, it felt more derogatory. Clumsy working as a preschool teacher? That's laughable. You better quit soon. Complaints from my husband, and condescension from my sister. That's my daily life now. But being looked down upon by Emma isn't new. Emma, with her elegant features like our mother, has always looked down on me, who is average looking. You really have nothing going for you. Below average in looks, and not a hint of dexterity. That's not true. What? Don't you dare talk back to me. Just listen quietly to what I have to say. How many times we've had this conversation. And similar things were said by those around us. Emma is beautiful like Mom. You two don't look much alike, do they? That's what I'd always hear, wherever I went. While it's true that she has elegant features, it's not like I'm unattractive. I just take after our father. I wanted to retort that, but my inability to speak well prevented me from doing so. In the end, she was always the one everyone doted on. Even my mother favored Emma, who resembled her. There's a clear incident that shows this. It happened when I was in elementary school. One holiday, while Dad was out at the convenience store, Mom said to Emma, "Emma, shall we go buy some clothes?" Really? Yay! Emma was thrilled. I hesitated for a moment, hoping, but when Mom looked at me, she said with a cold gaze, "You don't need clothes, do you, Mary?" I averted my gaze hesitantly. Then, Mom looked at me sharply. "You don't need them, right?" "Yes." "Oh, that's too bad. Since Mary doesn't need any, we'll go just the two of us." And so, Mom left with Emma, leaving me to stay home alone. Soon after, Dad came home. Surprised, he asked why I was alone. Mom and Emma went to buy clothes. I nearly burst into tears. Seeing my state, Dad immediately understood. He had probably sensed that Mom favored Emma. Dad confronted Mom when she returned. And Mom began to cry and make excuses. Mary said she didn't need any. She was just being considerate. You should know that. I don't understand what you are talking about. Mom retorted sharply. Dad was disappointed with her attitude. Mary, next time, let's go out together, okay? Yeah. Since that day, Dad has always been more attentive towards me. However, Mom's attitude remained unchanged. She always favored Emma. Honestly, I had given up. But it seemed my father hadn't. One day, he brought a woman home. She was a relative named Kate. Kate was supposed to live alone as she entered college, but our relatives were worried, so my father took her in. Nice to meet you, Mary. Yeah. The idea was, with a relative in the house, my mother couldn't ignore me as easily. I later found out that was my father's intention. With Kate's arrival, my mother and Emma's attitudes visibly changed. Whenever Emma made a snide remark to me, Kate would scold her. Emma, it's not nice to say that to Mary. You're a good girl, Emma, you understand, right? Emma would sulk at her words. She was displeased but seemed unable to voice her complaints directly. My mother was the same. She was pointed out whenever something happened. For example, when my mother prepared snacks only for Emma, Kate said, "Oh, snacks just for her? No. Mary's is coming up next, right?" My mother grimaced at Kate's words. She couldn't say there wasn't any for me. If she did, it might get back to my father through Kate. Fearing that, my mother reluctantly said, Yes, of course. I'm about to prepare it now. Just wait a moment, Mary." Reluctantly, my mother opened the fridge and placed a snack in front of me, just like hers. That's how Kate saved me many times. I often thought it would have been nice if she was my real sister. I was 10 years old at the time and thought so many times. She was 8 years older, a bit of an age gap. But in my heart, Kate had become my sister. And that feeling only grew stronger. Eventually, I couldn't hold back and confided in Kate. "Hey, Kate. Can I think of you as my real sister from now on?" "Of course," she said with a smile. But this angered my mother. "You're deceiving Mary, aren't you?" "Huh? What do you mean?" "Telling Mary she can think of you as her real sister. What are you after?" My mother confronted Kate harshly. Of course, Kate had nothing to feel guilty about. She responded calmly to my mother. But the situation turned when my mother said, "Kate, you're having an affair with my husband." "What? That's not true at all. Don't lie. You're Joe's mistress. That's why you, trying to make Mary your own daughter." My mother berated Kate. And her voice was loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Of course, there was no truth to my father having an affair with Kate. But it did affect how we were seen by those around us. Indeed, rumors spread in the neighborhood that Kate was my father's mistress. Reluctantly, my father had to send her away from our home. Once Kate left, everything quickly went back to how it was. But there was one change. My parents' relationship worsened. "Bringing a mistress into our home is the lowest of the low. I've told you many times, Kate is. She's a relative, right? I'm tired of that excuse." My mother turned away. My father seemed at a loss. With her gone, the hostility towards me intensified. Unable to bear it, I decided to leave home as soon as I graduated high school. After that, I worked part-time jobs while attending community college and then obtained my preschool teaching certificate. Even after becoming a preschool teacher, I continued to stay away from home. Going home meant facing snide remarks from my mother and Emma. I was concerned about my family's company. But with Emma there, it shouldn't be a problem. Feeling bad for my father, I told him this over the phone. He simply said he understood. It seemed he understood my feelings. Relieved, I devoted myself to my job as a preschool teacher. Years passed, and then one day, I received a call from my father. "Mary, do you have someone you're thinking of marrying?" "What's this all of a sudden, Dad?" "Well, actually." My father's story went like this. Not long ago, he went for an annual physical examination. Though he wasn't found to have any illness, a relative who went with him was diagnosed with something. That's when my father thought about the need for a successor for his company. The company needs a successor. My father's company was started by my grandfather. Furthermore, it grew to its current size with the help of relatives. However, it's not a family business. It's just that it has been supported by relatives. Meaning, if something happens to my father, someone must take over the company. Naturally, there are options for a capable person to become the president, but my father wants his own child to inherit it. So, marriage, huh? Emma can't be trusted, but how about you, Mary? With one of our capable employees? My father's voice sounded unusually serious. He seems quite concerned about the annual physical examination. Then I'll just meet him, that's all. Okay, then the schedule is. It seemed my father had already decided on a schedule. Eventually, I agreed to meet someone from the company as my father suggested. I thought I'd just meet him and then find a way to decline politely. But my plans were thwarted because my mother started pushing for the marriage. For some reason, my mother encouraged me to get married. This is a good opportunity for the introverted Mary. There's no reason to refuse, is there? But, do you have someone else in mind? I had no choice but to remain silent at my mother's questioning. Unable to refuse, I ended up dating him. I'm sorry. My mom is quite pushy. No, I'm more than happy to be with a beauty like you, said Tom, the man I was introduced to, with a smile. I returned a forced smile. He's kind, and according to my father, he's a fast-rising star in the company. I'm not sure, but is this what marriage is like? People around me always praised Emma. So I was hardly ever complimented myself. But he called me beautiful. Even if it was just flattery, I might not meet someone like him again in the future. So, I thought maybe I could marry him. And I married Tom. We started living together at my parents' house, as my father wished. I didn't like it, but Emma was living alone. I only had to endure my mother. So, I thought. But I soon regretted my naive judgment. As soon as we got married, Tom's attitude changed drastically. Quit your job as a preschool teacher. Why? I love my job. I'm going to succeed and become the president. It's embarrassing for the wife of a future president to work. His tone was gentle, but what he said was quite harsh. Don't work like a poor person. Act like a wealthy one. I felt like I could see through Tom's unspoken feelings. My affection for him quickly cooled. Within a few years, I felt nothing for him. That's why our marriage was full of misunderstandings. Now, we just think of each other as roommates. Even though we're only technically a married couple, I can't let Tom do as he pleases. On the other hand, if he's cheating somewhere, I wish he would just do it. If I could catch him cheating, I could end this relationship immediately. But thinking this way might mean I've completely lost any affection for him. Even though I think this, I'm afraid to make it clear. I was caught between these conflicting feelings. In fact, he would sneak out occasionally. If I investigated his behavior, I'm sure I'd catch him. Yet, I did nothing. On a certain holiday, I decided to go out in the morning to buy things for the child care center's play. I'll be back by the evening. What about your dad and mom? Dad's working on his day off. Mom went out shopping with a friend. I was sure because I saw them off. When I said that, he nodded reluctantly. So, it's just me then. That's right. Take care of the house, please. Yeah. Tom said reluctantly, scratching his head as he went back to his room. I left the house, wondering if it was okay. I headed to the nearby dollar store. First, I filled my basket with the necessary items while looking at the notes on my smartphone. After I finished shopping, I casually put my hand in my pocket. That's when I realized the wallet that was supposed to be there was missing. Wait, my wallet? Did I drop it? I stopped myself as I realized I had left it on the living room table. Thinking I made a mistake, I put the items back and hurried home. As I unlocked the front door, strange voices could be heard from inside. It seemed like a woman's voice. Wait. The only one home should be Tom, right? I headed towards the source of the voices. It was our bedroom. Why from the bedroom? I wondered as the woman's voice became clearer. Mary isn't coming back until the evening? I immediately covered my mouth, realizing it was Emma's voice. Tom's voice followed. She went to buy things for the play. Then we have until the evening to enjoy ourselves. If you look closely, you'll see that the door is slightly open. Peering through the slightly ajar door, I saw Emma and Tom inside. The two of them were on the bed, not wearing any clothes. Tom and Emma were having an affair. As I came to that realization, he said, "Engaging in physical intimacy here is quite something, isn't it?" Indeed. But Mary is really oblivious, isn't she? Absolutely. She still hasn't realized what's going on between her husband and her sister. Their laughter followed. I stood in front of the room, fists clenched. I wanted to burst in and confront them, both naked. As I thought this, Emma's voice gradually faded. It turned into whispers, and soon her sweet voice filled the air. I had reached my limit of patience. What are you doing in my bed? A rage I couldn't vocalize rose within me. And I quietly left the area to avoid making noise. Maybe I am dense, but I had a hunch about his infidelity. I was afraid to acknowledge he was cheating, so I did nothing. But being presented with undeniable proof woke me up. Tom and the detestable Emma shouldn't be forgiven. If I ran away now, it would stay this way forever. I didn't want to be looked down upon by anyone anymore. I decided to take revenge on them for myself. Thinking this, I quietly entered the living room. The family computer was in the living room. I really wanted to use my own computer. But my computer was in the bedroom. Since Tom and Emma were there, I couldn't go inside. I can do at least this much, I murmured as I took the webcam in my hand. With it, I went up to the bedroom door and pointed the camera inside through the gap, then hurried back to the living room. I turned on the computer and connected it to the webcam wirelessly. At the same time, I sent a message to someone. Then, like a web conference, I streamed the camera footage to that person. Can you see it? I asked using the computer's microphone. An immediate response came back. I can see it, perfectly. The reply came from Kate. Yes, I had contacted her. After Kate left the house, I felt quite lonely and depressed. Seeing this, my father set up a computer so I could keep in touch with her. Since then, I frequently communicated with her. It was like having a web conference, as my father put it. In any case, connecting with her was easy. Emma and Tom are in the midst of an affair. Kate, can I live stream this? Of course. I'll record it for you, too. Kate had graduated from university and worked in computer-related fields. She mentioned something about IoT solutions. This kind of task was easy for her. How much time had passed? Suddenly, there was a loud noise. Ouch! What's this? What happened? Something weird at the entrance. Finally, she noticed. As I thought this, Emma's loud voice echoed. What? A camera! Footsteps hurriedly approached. Soon after, she burst into the living room. Finding me, she tried to fix her partially removed clothes and yelled, "This is your doing! What is this?" "It's a webcam." "You were spying on us." "Enough already! You're the worst." Emma slammed the webcam to the floor. "The worst one is you," I retorted while thinking. "If you break it, you're paying for it. It's quite expensive, you know." "Shut up! More importantly, why you are here?" "Unlike you, I live here," I answered nonchalantly. But Emma seemed infuriated by my attitude. "That's not what I mean. You know that." She raised her voice. I replied indifferently. "I just answered your question." "But you're prepared, aren't you?" "Eh? Why are you acting all high and mighty?" Emma screamed, and finally, Tom showed up. He looked at Emma and smirked nastily. You were here. Mary, did you finish shopping?" "Not yet. I had to go back for my wallet, and when I did, I caught you two engaging in physical intimacy." "Peeking, huh? Nice hobby." I can't see the humor in this situation. That's why I said to him, "Think it's funny? You do realize what happens if you cheat, right?" "Nothing will happen. No one's going to listen to you anyway," Tom said with a scoff. "Why do you think that?" "Because Emma is here, and so is your mom. They're on our side." "I see. That's how it is. But this time, we have evidence. So, no matter what Mom says, it can't be overturned." Thinking this, I quietly stood up and declared to Tom, "Tom, I'm divorcing you. Just now, I got the perfect evidence." "Huh? You think you can divorce? Try it if you can." He doesn't seem to grasp the situation. Sighing, I turned to Emma. "I'll be demanding compensation from you." "Compensation? From me? For being the other woman?" As I raised my voice, Emma looked sulky. Frowning, she glared at me harshly. "Don't act all high and mighty when you can't do anything. Just quietly listen to us." "Sorry, but I'm an adult. I won't listen to Emma or Mom anymore." I grabbed the wallet from the table and slipped past them, heading straight for the door. Tom followed me. "Where are you going?" "I'm leaving. I don't want to stay here anymore." "I get it. Mary, you have someone else, right? Going to his place, aren't you?" I was astonished. What a wild imagination. Perhaps, because he was cheating, he thought I was too. Regardless, I looked at Tom sternly and retorted, "I got evidence of the cheating. There's no need for me to stay any longer." After stating this unilaterally, I went outside. "Wait! We're not done talking. The talk is over. I'm divorcing you, Tom. We'll have a discussion later about this." I shouted over his voice and slammed the door with force. Heading to Kate's house next. Kate lives alone, about a 30-minute drive away. Since she's not married, she might welcome me even on short notice. With that hope, I rang Kate's doorbell. Kate immediately came out. Seeing my face, she hugged me without asking why. I was so relieved that I cried without caring who saw. Once I calmed down, Kate let me into her room. Are you okay? Have you calmed down? Yeah. It must have been tough. But it might be even tougher at home. Not understanding why Kate was laughing, I asked her. What do you mean? Well, actually. Kate started to explain, barely containing her laughter. The story goes back a bit. Right after I contacted Kate, she started recording their engagement in physical intimacy. Then, Kate received a call from someone. The caller was a work contact, wanting to discuss work. After quickly finishing the work conversation, the person apparently sought personal advice from Kate. That's when Kate had a brilliant idea and did something quite bold. This broadcast? Yes, I recorded Mary's stream and shared it with that person too. So, a complete stranger saw it? Embarrassed, I covered my face with my hands. I hadn't intended to go that far. At that moment, Kate patted my back. It wasn't a stranger I shared it with. It was your dad. My dad? As I asked again, Kate started laughing and explained. She works at an IoT solutions company. It's a company that solves various problems through the internet and devices. Dad was interested in IoT solutions and had been consulting with her about her company. So, it was half work, half personal. But the work talk ended quickly. Then, Dad asked about me, noticing that things weren't going well between Tom and me. Hearing this, Kate had an idea. The cause was undoubtedly him, because the evidence was right there in front of us. Thinking this, she prefaced it by showing the video. This is what's happening right now. Kate sends the video I was streaming to my father. My father watched the video silently. After a while, when Emma broke the camera, my father said this to Kate. Take care of Mary if she comes. That's all he said before cutting the communication. What happened after that, I don't know. But he probably went back home. Kate said so. At that moment, my smartphone rang. It was my father who contacted me. He said me to come back home. It was a message from my father saying, of course, I didn't want to go back home. But if my father says to come back, it means some resolution must have been reached. I'll go with you, Kate said, and that made me feel prepared. Kate and I went back home together. When we got home, Emma and Tom were being made to reflect in the living room. In front of them was my father, furious. I softly spoke to my father. Dad, I'm home. Ah, I was waiting. These two have something they want to say to Mary. My father stared at Emma and Tom. I'm sorry. It was all my fault. Tom deeply apologized. Emma, next to him, also apologized deeply. I'm sorry. I won't do it again. Please forgive me. Emma was crying, which was rare. I felt a bit relieved. What will you do, Mary? Forgive them or not? My father asked me. But the answer was already clear to me. There's no way I can forgive them. I'm going to divorce and I'll demand compensation from both. Wait a minute. I don't have any money. That's your problem, not mine. Please, wait. Emma began to make a fuss. But when my father scolded her, she suddenly became quiet. How could that arrogant Emma change so much while I was away? I was so surprised I couldn't continue. While I was thinking, Tom said, Mary, please reconsider the divorce. No. Don't say that. Without you, I won't have a place in the company anymore. Tom started crying. He looked like a child. What do you mean? I looked back at my father, who then explained while looking intently at Tom. We've been favoring him because he was Mary's husband. What will people think if that's gone? I see. People will think Tom messed up. That's the end of it. Of course, that doesn't mean he'll be fired from the company. But an isolated ex-husband, what happens to him is clear without saying. No one will lend a hand carelessly. Tom cried and clung to me, but there was no reason for mercy. So, I said to the crying Tom, "Too bad. Maybe look for a new job?" "Wait. Please, let's start over." "Okay." "No. I've decided to divorce." I shook off his clinging hand. The moment I did, he collapsed on the spot. After that, the video of engaging in physical intimacy became the deciding factor, and Tom and I officially divorced. Of course, with clear evidence, I could demand a hefty compensation. I also demanded compensation from Emma. She resisted, but she was powerless in front of that evidence. Most of the process was left to the lawyer. Because I had preparations for a childcare center's play and daily work. Working was actually more distracting. I was prepared for some disputes, but the divorce went surprisingly smoothly. Maybe it was thanks to the lawyer. I felt relieved. Then, one day, a parent named Ben approached me at pickup time. "Mary, can I have a moment?" "What is it?" "Recently, I've been seeing a strange person around the childcare center." It seems there's someone watching the childcare center. Other parents are scared too. It's better for the childcare center to take action before any harm comes to the children. That's what he told me. I was just surprised. I didn't know. What does the person look like? Like a suspicious man. Before things get worse, I thought we should take measures. So, I immediately consulted with the principal. The principal listened to my story and consulted with the local police right away. The police promised to increase patrols. Yet, that alone wasn't enough. I worked with other caregivers to alert the parents, hoping that would make the person wary. A few days later, during pickup time, a man's loud voice came from the street in front of the child care center. "Hey! What are you doing here? Stop!" Startled, I instinctively protected the children. The principal got the children inside the building. Once the children's safety was assured, I looked out the window towards the street. "What are you doing here?" The loud voice was Ben's. He seemed to have come to pick up a child. In front of him was a person wearing a black hood, looking suspicious, holding a camera. The appearance was dubious, maybe a pervert. The principal must have thought the same and had called the police. At that moment, the man retorted to Ben. Not really." Hearing that voice, I was struck with realization. That voice. Tom? Thinking so, I strained my eyes to look at the person under the hood. A glimpse of the face visible through the hood gap was clearly Tom. Why is he here? By the time I thought that, I had already rushed out. Noticing me, Ben moved to shield me. At that moment, the hooded person shouted, "So you were cheating after all? Is he the one?" The hooded person, Tom, was raising his voice at me. Ben was dumbfounded by the situation. Then he quietly asked me, "Do you know this person?" Astonished that he was the suspicious person. Momentarily deflated, Tom raised his voice again. "That man is your affair partner." Tom was pointing at Ben. I retorted in disbelief. "What are you talking about? This person is a parent of a child who attends the child care center." "Don't lie. I heard it from your mom." Mary, you're having an affair with a parent, aren't you? In front of me, he started to rant unilaterally. It was right after the divorce. Desperate to reconcile, Tom had consulted my mother. Then she told him I was having an affair with a parent of a child attending the child care center. Finding that a fair partner would reconcile the two of us. Their affair was just an act. She convinced him that way and promised. I was dumbfounded by how such a story came about and couldn't say anything. Then, a loud siren sounded, and several police cars arrived. What's this? Just stay calm. Ben caught Tom as he tried to flee in panic. Tom struggled and shouted, Let go! Mary, do you know this person? Ben asked again. I shook my head and answered, Ben, you're a police officer, right? Please take this suspicious person away. With a cold statement, he was surprised. Eventually, Tom was taken away by the police. Later, I heard he was released after receiving a warning from the police. Whether he was truly all right after that is debatable. In fact, many children started crying when he was found. Naturally, no parent would forgive this. Indeed, one parent filed a complaint against him for traumatizing their child. Whether compensation was awarded is uncertain. But it certainly added insult to injury for Tom. Seeing the situation gravely, my father fired him. He even ordered that part of the severance pay be used to compensate the parents. He could not ignore his father's command. Everything was recorded on video. Some of it was even broadcast on a video site. In the end, he had no choice but to ask for the video's removal as a condition for reconciliation. Tom, now jobless, seems to be living by working part-time jobs at night. The mother who incited Tom had a huge fight with my father. It seems she wanted to help Emma. Learning this, my father was furious. And then he said to her, Why do you always antagonize Mary? I can't stand this anymore, we're getting a divorce. Thus, my mother was kicked out of the house. Losing a place to go, she ended up crashing at Emma's room. But she had just quit her job because of the rumors at work about being sued for compensation due to the affair. Naturally, Emma tried to kick her out immediately. However, she wouldn't be ousted easily. Because Kate had spread the story of the divorce among the relatives. Seen as the bad woman who only doted on one daughter. Among the relatives, that was my mother's reputation. And Emma, too, was labeled as the worst woman for stealing her sister's husband. With no relatives to turn to, the two had to support each other. Eventually, they decided to support each other with part-time janitorial jobs and moved into a small apartment together, so I heard. As for me, I continued working as a childcare worker. The incident with Tom had caused trouble at my workplace. Initially, I intended to quit. But I was persuaded to stay by the parents. That's why I'm still working as a childcare worker. Thinking about remarriage or dating is out of the question for now. But if a good opportunity arises, I might consider it seriously. Mary, are you having any troubles? No. Rather, I'm sorry for the inconvenience the other day. If you ever have any troubles, I'm always here to listen. I'm single and have plenty of time. When he said that, I felt a little happy. Maybe this is what love is, but that's a secret for now. Dad, that person is scary. At a bread-making class I was attending with my grandchild, a little girl I didn't know was frightened by me. But there was a good reason for it. What I was actually glaring at with all my might was my son, and the fact that he had an unavoidable commitment was one thing, but it was clearly odd for an unknown little girl to call my son Dad, especially when he had his own child. This situation led to the worst possible betrayal I could imagine, and it was not something I could just let slide. My son noticed my gaze and instantly became suspiciously nervous. Yikes! Even though he was pale and breaking out in a cold sweat, that did nothing to clear my suspicions, so I approached him. Can we have a talk when we get home? Yes. But please keep it a secret from Kate. You think that's going to work? Eek! Faced with my determination, my son could only shrink away. I, Jane, am 60 years old, and there's nothing I wouldn't do for my adorable 8-year-old granddaughter, Mary. I have a good relationship with my daughter-in-law, Kate, and even though our connection is only by marriage, I think of her as my own daughter. It's not just because of this fact alone that I favor Kate, but she has a condition that makes it difficult for her to have children. She went through what can only be described as a grueling effort, namely fertility treatments, to give birth to Mary. I will never forget her gratitude for that. It's only natural that Kate, who had struggled so much, adored her daughter greatly. I had never heard of any discord between her and my son, Mike, and I supported them as well. Everything should have been fine, but an entirely unexpected situation was unfolding behind the scenes, unbeknownst to me. It was around the time Mary started elementary school when I received a troubled call from Kate. Jane, I've actually decided to start working. There's no reason to object, but what brought this on all of a sudden? Mike told me. He said his salary got cut and we're struggling financially, so he asked for my help. Well, given the times, it can't be helped. At that time, I was convinced, and Kate had decided to take up a part-time job during the day, which is fine, but since Mike is also working, he's not around during the day, so someone has to look after the child, meaning the grandchild. I'm sorry, Jane, for causing you trouble. Don't be shy. You do your part for the household. Grandma, let's play. In fact, my granddaughter Mary is very adorable, and I thought I could give everything for this child's happiness. However, the problem is my son, Mike, who was very reluctant to take care of his own child. I was hoping at least on his days off, but it seems Mike is often away from home, and there have been increasing conflicts with Kate. One day, she came to my house with her child, looking angry, and said, Mike is just terrible. He could at least look after Mary a little. But all he says is that it's my job. I'm not one to say, but his way of thinking is old-fashioned. I understand. I'll talk to him. Thinking it would be unfair to burden Kate any further, especially since she had already started working and was busy, I contacted Mike on another day. Mike, I heard from Kate. As a father, don't you think you should take a little more responsibility in parenting? Shut up. Don't meddle in family matters. Saying it in such an annoying and bothersome manner, I was angry, but I couldn't back down. Listen to what people are saying. Don't you care about your daughter? Yeah, she's important. Super important. Mom, you don't have to worry about a thing. It was all superficial, or rather, there was no intention to listen at all. It's almost admirable how casual the response can be. I realized it was futile to say anything more, so I had no choice but to back down. If only things had ended there, but then, at another time, I received this concern from Kate. Trouble is, Jane. It seems our family issues have become the talk of the neighborhood. How did you find out? I overheard it. Some mom friends were talking about our house. Thinking about how difficult it is to suppress rumors, I just felt sorry for Kate. Blaming everything on Mike left me feeling helpless and, once again, I couldn't contain my anger. Then, on a holiday when our grandchild had reached the 3rd grade, Kate had to work due to her shift, and we couldn't go to the amusement park as initially planned, she informed me. I thought Mike would take care of Mary, But then, as if it was the most natural thing, our son declared, "I've got an important errand, so I'll be out. Take care of Mary for me, Mom." I was outraged by his irresponsibility but decided to take care of my granddaughter that day. While pondering how to spend the day with my granddaughter, I found out from a flyer in the newspaper that a neighboring town was holding a bread-making workshop as part of a community festival. Mary loves bread and has been saying since she was little that she wants to be a baker. There's likely no disagreement that it's good to let children experience their interests from an early age. Moreover, considering the bad rumors spreading about my son's family in our neighborhood, the fact that the neighboring town was convenient and accepting walk-ins was truly fortunate. So, my granddaughter and I decided to participate in the bread-making workshop in the neighboring town. The workshop was bustling, not just with mothers but also fathers and even children like me brought along by their grandparents. However, the joy of baking bread with my grandchild became utterly irrelevant. Incredibly, there was a man who seemed to be Mike among the participants. I initially thought it was a mistake because he was with a girl. "Dad, I did it." "Good job, that's great." "Well done." His voice was unmistakably similar, or rather, there was no mistaking him, but the fact that the girl was calling Mike Dad was undeniably odd. Even after casually changing angles to check, there was no doubt it was Mike, and the only conclusion I could draw from the facts was the worst kind of betrayal. Feeling purely and utterly unable to forgive rather than questioning his nerve shouldn't be surprising. When I glared at Mike with all my might, it was the girl who noticed first. "That person looks scary." "Eh? Who?" The moment carefree Mike noticed me, his face contorted, and he became visibly nervous. "Just wait here for a moment, Mary." "Okay." Feeling relieved that my grandchild was obedient at this moment, I approached Mike. "Scary." My anger must have been intense. The girl, who seemed to be his secret child, backed away a bit, which made me feel somewhat sorry for her, so I spoke to her gently. "I'm sorry. I just want to talk to your dad." "Okay." She seemed to understand quickly. Putting aside the secret child, I calmly said to a pale-faced Mike, "Can we have a thorough talk later?" "Yikes!" His panic-suggested guilt was undeniable. Then, in a whisper, my son said, "Let's keep this a secret from Kate." It sounded so absurd that it went beyond disbelief to being almost comically pathetic. "You think that kind of request is going to work?" "Yikes!" I don't know what kind of face I was making at the time, but I must have looked scared because I was furious. Mike had lost all color in his face. Mary and I, having had enough of our bread-making experience, went home and immediately reported to Kate. "What the heck is that?" I could painfully understand Kate's astonishment over the phone, and it seemed there was no shaking the fact that Mike was to blame, no matter how you looked at it. "Just wait a sec, Jane. I'll wrap up work and have Mary looked after by a mom friend." "Is Mike coming?" "I'll call him now. I'll make sure he comes, no matter what." After ending the call with Kate, I summoned Mike. "Come here right now. Don't think you have the right to refuse." "Understood. I'll head over immediately." Perhaps because my words were filled with anger, it was clear even over the phone that Mike had turned pale. Soon after, Kate arrived, and since Mary was already with a mom friend, the biggest issue of not wanting to expose our granddaughter to a family crisis was gone. Then, Mike arrived, already sweating profusely and even his lips trembling. "Mike, can you explain what that was all about?" "It was just a coincidence. Kind of got mistaken for the dad and just went with the flow." It was a desperate excuse, and even if it were true, it didn't explain why our son was so pale. "A coincidence, huh? Then why are you so pale? You don't have anything to hide, right?" There must be a reason you can't stand tall, huh? Kate's words were cold, but at least in this situation, her tone was acceptable. Mike, you did say it, right? Keep it a secret from Kate. That means it's a relationship that's bad if discovered, right? Yeah, I said that. So why does she know? And why am I being interrogated now? Mike's attitude, almost aggressively defensive, was disgraceful. I couldn't see any reason why I should dutifully help conceal a secret in the first place. Are you stupid? Blaming Kate when it's clearly your own fault. Aren't you ashamed? In a way, it's a remarkable display of defiance. So, you think refusing to elaborate is an excuse that will work? Damn it! Frustrated, Mike finally confessed the truth. What did you say? Damn. Knowing the revealed truth left me speechless, and Kate, not exploding in anger, made it clear her fury had reached its peak. The fact Mike disclosed was that upon learning Kate was infertile, he quickly gave up on her, started an affair, fathered a daughter with the other woman, and began leaving home frequently to visit his mistress's house. Worse still, the reason he had Kate start working wasn't due to a decrease in his salary, but because he needed more money for child support for his illegitimate child. For what reason? Worse still, the reason he had her start working wasn't due to a decrease in his salary, but because he needed more money for child support for his illegitimate child. Despite undergoing difficult fertility treatments, she was easily betrayed by her husband, who then used the money she worked hard to earn for his mistress and their child. It felt as if Kate had been sacrificed and exploited, making it not only tragic but deeply unfair to her son. Why didn't you tell me until now? This question was the last bit of kindness left in me, but even this small kindness was soon to be betrayed. That is. Mike said that around the same time the affair partner's pregnancy came to light, Kate's fertility treatment succeeded, and she became pregnant with Mary, which made it difficult for him to reveal the truth. Furthermore, continuing on, when he told his mistress about Kate's pregnancy, she flew into a rage and demanded he build a home with her instead, making it even harder for him to return home. There's no room for sympathy here, it's clear the son is in the wrong. After hearing his excuses, Kate remained stoic, but it was clear from the atmosphere that she was furious enough to involve the police. I'm divorcing you. Any objections? Kate's voice, eerily calm and resonating as if from the depths, left no room for refusal or struggle. I never thought you could be such a fool. I fully support Kate. Of course, you and your mistress will be paying compensation, right? What? Why? I'm appalled. Mike, do you even understand what you've done? Even a legal novice like me can see this. The emotional distress alone warrants compensation. Naturally, I'll have custody of Mary. I'm ashamed to call someone like you my son. Consider this a disownment. I firmly resolved never to support Mike with a single cent again. So, you think the mistress is more important even she's forcing you? Fine, remarry her if you think so. Yeah, I will. It was clear Mike was acting recklessly, but there was no sympathy to be had. Yet, the situation took an unexpected turn. The divorce with Kate was finalized, and she successfully gained custody of Mary. Sometime after the compensation was paid, Mike, who was supposed to have been disowned, showed up at our house with a woman he hadn't introduced before, unabashedly saying, "Hey, I'm here to start anew today. Haven't introduced her yet. This is Emma. She's..." "Hello, Jane. I've brought another adorable grandchild." "Hello, Grandma." The cheeky girl she was with was indeed the same one I saw at the bread-making class that day. But what kind of nerve does one need to have to come here? Life's been tough because of the compensation payments, so I thought we'd come to stay at Mom's house. Nice to meet you. I've given birth to a precious grandchild, so I have a right to live here, don't I? Without a home, we'd be in trouble, and I think Grandma has a duty to support us. I found myself clapping my hands at the three of them for their carefreeness, irresponsibility, brazenness, and lack of common sense. You guys are amazing. Really, truly amazing. Don't be shy. It's not that big of a deal. Flattered to be praised. The three of them, pretending to be shy, seemed so out of this world that I even wondered if Mike was not related by blood, and with such audacity, I felt absolutely no compassion for them. This house is spacious, so it's perfectly fine to have 3 more people, right? I was so shocked that I couldn't utter a single word. Of course, Kate, who happened to be at the house that day, felt the same. And then Mike said something even more astonishing. Let's get along. Having a sister, even with a different mother, must be nice for Mary, right? Go home. Why? Never come back. Kate's words were filled with a strong tone. Understood. Excuse us. Goodbye. Finally, the unwelcome guests left. After that, Kate raised her daughter on her own. I took care of all the financial aspects, but it never bothered me. I'm sorry, Jane. No need to apologize. Kate, you've done enough. What kind of parents wouldn't support their child? She is very serious, and I truly regret that our relationship is only official on paper. Just as if to bother that happiness, I kept getting persistent, whiny calls from Mike. Why do you always favor Kate and them over me? I'm out of money at my place, Mom. Help me. I couldn't say anything to Mike, who shirked his responsibilities and complained it wouldn't make a difference because he wouldn't understand anyway. There's no reason for me to be kind to you. And what am I supposed to do then? I don't know. Why don't you look up the word responsibility in the dictionary? Is that what a parent says? Help me. Emma gets angry easily these days and then sides with Mom. At this rate, our family will fall apart. Why should I have to worry about the household of a man who has become a stranger? Mike's naive thought that everything would be okay if he relied on me was just appalling. That's why it's none of my business anymore. What's with that attitude? Even when scolded, he talks as if receiving help was a given, and I was just tired of it. Yet, any hope for Mike's reformation would end up being betrayed. Mom, could you prepare some child support for Anne? She's your granddaughter, after all. Can't you at least take care of her? Indeed, she is my granddaughter by relation, but that doesn't mean I have an obligation to care for her or provide assistance. Why should I have to take care of a child made as a result of betraying Kate? She's still your granddaughter, isn't she? Help out. I don't want to hear that from a traitor. Maybe you should reflect on what you've done. It's all Kate's fault in the first place, isn't it? He's now blaming Kate? She had done nothing wrong. This word made me more than angry. I thought he had crossed a line that should never be crossed. Be quiet. If you insult her any further, I'll call the police. Police? Why the hell for that? Don't joke with me. Save your sleep talk for when you're actually asleep. Who's joking now? I was furious and hung up the phone immediately, then reported him to the police. Even if it was just speculation, Mike's behavior felt like it could violate the anti-stalking laws. And even if it didn't, his relentless, misguided attempts at contact were a nuisance worth reporting to the police, regardless of the legal specifics. I don't know what happened to Mike after that, nor did I see any value in finding out. It seemed pointless. However, the police did inform us that he had been taken in, and we didn't need to worry anymore. Kate continued to raise Mary diligently, And although I didn't see my granddaughter as often, I made sure to visit and deepen our bond. My only concern was that she had become a single mother, though that's hardly unusual these days. Still, it was clear she'd face more challenges than most, and while it's ultimately up to her, I've considered finding and introducing her to a more sincere partner eventually. But for now, things have settled, my relationship with her remains strong, and my granddaughter is growing up healthy. I've decided to simply savor this joy. I got a huge sum of money, and you just got an old house and a mere field? My brother Robin, who unexpectedly received a large inheritance, mocks me. To think that this is how they treat their daughter who has always taken care of and nursed them. You must not have been loved. His words are infuriating, but I don't talk back. Just you wait. I won't let this setback keep me down. Driven by anger towards Robin, I worked hard to restore the neglected field. My name is Carol, a 50-year-old housewife. I've been married to my husband Justin for 25 years, and our children have all grown up and become independent. I thought we could live a peaceful and enjoyable life together, just the two of us. But life doesn't always go as planned. As soon as our children became independent, I began to take care of our parents. Justin's parents had passed away long ago, so the ones I cared for were my own. My parents, who ran a farm, were always confident in their physical strength and were the picture of health. I often helped them, especially during the harvest season. The freshly picked vegetables were truly delicious. Juicy and sweet vegetables. I fondly remember them because I can no longer savor that taste. My parents couldn't defy aging and had to retire as their legs grew weaker. I really wanted to continue for longer. My father Stuart said with a weak smile. I wish I could let Carol taste those vegetables again. My mother Olivia expressed her regret. It would have been great if Robin had taken over. My father said, feeling down. I have an older brother, Robin, 2 years older than me. Robin has always been irresponsible, acting on a whim and doing whatever he pleases. He barely attended high school and eventually dropped out, claiming it was too much trouble. He left home, never settling into a steady job, working odd jobs here and there, and then would suddenly return home to demand money from our parents. Yet, because he is their son, they couldn't be harsh to him. Robin also stopped visiting the house after our parents quit farming. There will be no money received from parents living on a pension, he used to say. If there's no money, he has no business with them. As much as he is my brother, he's the worst. I try to forget such brother exists, but he's still family. Sometimes, even my parents would worry. I wonder if that child is doing all right. They would say. But after they quit farming, they aged quickly. Maybe things would have been different if they had continued farming, even just as a hobby. By the time I started regretting it, they had already aged significantly and both became bedridden. Sorry, Carol. We're causing you trouble. My apologetic father and mother were met with my smiling denial. I am who I am today because of you both. Let me repay you. As I said this, my mother teared up and thanked me. Taking care of them was hard work, but my children were already independent, and I wasn't working since I was a housewife. I had thought about getting a part-time job once the kids were independent, but we weren't struggling financially, so I could put that off. After discussing with Justin, I decided to stay at my parents' house to take care of them. I don't think they have much time left. The shock of hearing this from the doctor was immense. I called Robin, crying. Won't you come to see our parents? Irresponsible as he may be, Robin is still my brother. To our parents, he is their beloved son. Surely, Robin remembers being loved by them. That's why I wanted him to see them one last time, but Robin's answer was terrible. Huh? Why should I? I'm busy, you know. Busy? Are you working? Like I'd bother with that. Yeah, I'm doing day labor. I worked yesterday, so I thought I might go see some horses today. Going to see horses? You mean betting on horse racing, right? As expected, Carol, you know me well. What are you thinking? You prioritize gambling over visiting our parents? It's more important to me than life itself. You're the worst! Furious at Robin's extremely disappointing behavior, I hung up the phone. After that, Robin never came to visit our parents at all. Day by day, both of them continued to weaken. And then, suddenly, my father passed away, followed by my mother the next day. They were a loving couple until the end. Once I had finished crying, busy time awaited me. Organizing a funeral for both of them was a huge task. With Justin's help and our 2 sons, we somehow managed it. It should have been something to discuss and arrange with Robin, but he never showed up. I managed to contact him, but... Huh? Our parents' funeral? I'm busy, I won't come. Just handle it however on your end. And with that, he hung up the phone. Handle it however? That's not possible. Even at 52, Robin remains incredibly irresponsible. Angry at Robin, the tearful funeral came to an end. And then, some time later, Robin finally returned to our family home. It was outrageous he didn't even come to the funeral, but the reason for his return was simple. It was to discuss the inheritance. Hey, Carol, long time no see. You've aged quite a bit. Leave it alone. You've aged too, Robin. I'm still younger looking than you, since I'm single and didn't age from raising kids. Maybe I look like your younger brother now? I was appalled that these were his first words after meeting his sister for the first time in a while. Despite claiming to enjoy his bachelor life, Robin looked significantly aged. Did you visit their graves? Why would I do such a meaningless thing? Do you think the dead can see that? It's not about that. I was irritated by Robin's attitude, showing no sense of loss for our parents, but arguing with him was pointless. I decided it was best to get the discussion over with quickly and took my seat. Well then, let's proceed, please. I said this to the lawyer present. Indeed, our parents had prepared a proper will. Under the supervision of the lawyer, we began to open the will. What does it say? What's my share? Hold on a minute. Robin eagerly leaned in as soon as the envelope was opened. I sighed at his impatience. Before my exasperated gaze, the lawyer spread out the will. As a result, Robin was to inherit cash. I was to inherit the family home and the field, the workplace where our parents had toiled. Upon hearing this, Robin, haha. Can you believe that? That's just great, isn't it hilarious? Bursted out laughing. Cash, it's this statement, right? Wow, $300,000? Is this for real? Amazing. Farming really pays off. Along with the will, there was a bank account statement kept by the lawyer. It was indeed a significant amount. For Robin, who never had a steady job and lived day to day, this was a fortune. I was also a bit surprised to learn such an amount was left behind. Though they worked hard, my parents, whose hobbies and entertainment were farming, probably didn't have much use for money. And? What about you, Carol? With a mocking smile, Robin looked at me, still laughing. His question revealed his unpleasant character, even though he had heard the contents of the will. This house and the field. Ha ha ha. Really? Robin, holding his stomach, laughed heartily. Patience, just be patient. I reminded myself desperately, trying to contain my anger. I get a huge sum of money, and you just get an old house and a mere field. Robin said amidst his intense laughter. This is how they treat their daughter who took care of and nursed them? You weren't loved at all. I felt my blood boil but somehow managed to hold back. Arguing here would be meaningless. Indeed, the value of this house and field combined doesn't come close to the cash amount Robin inherited. Our parents wanted me to keep this house and field, our family home. So, I must endure. I know better than anyone that my parents loved me. Well, the eldest son is always loved, right? And I was the favorite son. I can understand why our parents felt that way. Finally stopping his laughter, Robin flaunted the bank account statement right in front of my eyes. So, that's how it is. I'm taking this with me. As if it was that simple. I didn't want any disputes over the inheritance later. The lawyer had prepared the documents, so Robin signed them and left. The moment Robin was out of sight. "Never come back!" I shouted. I'll forget about Robin. Likely, I'll never meet him again. Forgetting such a despicable person is best, a realization that came to me a year after my parents passed away. After completing various inheritance documents and procedures, and as I was clearing out the now empty family home, time seemed to fly by. Now, the once busy family home was empty. I have a house built by Justin, and to live here, as Robin said, is too old-fashioned. Maybe I should sell it sensibly. But the thought of losing my childhood home feels sad. Lost in these thoughts, I sat in the empty house. Suddenly, my eyes caught sight of a hoe in the garden. In this day and age, it's rare to use a hoe. Yet, my father preferred to use it. Stored out of reach during my childhood for safety. The iron part was now completely rusted and the handle severely decayed. It barely retained its original shape, but I touched it gently. What came to mind was the image of my father joyfully working in the fields, sweating, with my mother laughing beside him. Those were nostalgic, dearly cherished times. Quietly closing my eyes and indulging in these memories, I opened them with resolve and decided. All right. Farming? Yeah. Well, it's more like an extension of home gardening, a hobby. Isn't that nice? Having inherited the field, I thought to try something with it. When I discussed it with Justin, he easily agreed. Really? It's the field your parents left behind, you should try it. I couldn't be more grateful for Justin's support. With advice from a farmer acquaintance of my father, I began tending to the neglected field. I tried growing the same vegetables my father did, as well as experimenting with new varieties. It turned out to be a challenging task. Farming is hard. I had some experience with home gardening. But this was a whole different level. Not just the vastness of it, but also because these weren't just vegetables for personal consumption. Doing it seriously is this tough. Reviving the depleted soil alone was a challenge. Deciding on the right vegetables for the soil was tough. What about the seasons? The pests? Wild birds, too, turned out to be adversaries. Not only did I have to grow the crops, but I also had to think about protective measures. The work didn't progress easily, and I encountered many failures. I can't believe you're doing all this. As a rich man like me, it's unimaginable. That was Robin, who had called just to look down on me. Somehow, he had heard that I had started farming and called to comment. As usual, his words were discouraging, so I quickly hung up. Forget it. I have to forget that. Channeling my anger towards Robin into motivation, I tirelessly worked on the field. Farming equipment, even secondhand, was expensive, but I considered it a necessary investment and used my savings. It's your savings, so I won't say anything. The generous Justin said that to me. Although it was my savings, any money I had from before I was married was long gone, and what I used was really money Justin had given me for my allowance, saved over time. Even so, Justin didn't mind and supported me, which moved me to tears. I fell in love with him all over again. My sons also helped, researching on the internet and sharing information with me. The farmers who were acquaintances of my father were all kind people. Apart from the infuriating Robin, I was truly in a blessed environment, which allowed me to focus on farming. What started as a hobby quickly became a passion, and I got serious about it. I guess I really am my parents' daughter. As I thought this, time passed by. And then, I did it. Finally, the first harvest from my field. Though the produce wasn't as succulent and sweet as my parents', the yield was modest. What mattered was that I had accomplished it. I felt satisfied. Hey, not bad for a first-timer. Those encouraging words came from Mike, a farmer who had been a great help. He had always been concerned about the condition of my field. Mike's praise, reminiscent of a man about the same age as my father, deeply touched my heart. Adjust the amount of fertilizer and water a bit more. Ah yes, Stuart used to use that particular fertilizer. There was still so much I didn't know. Gathering every bit of information I could, I was determined to get closer to replicating my parents' tastes. Gradually, the field became more impressive. What started as a small corner was now a fully tended field. Days of trial and error with various crops. Gradually, the quality of the vegetables I grew improved, and eventually... Wow, another bountiful year! Thank you. Please continue to supply to us. Of course, thank you very much. My vegetables had reached a point where they could be sold. I even gained a favored business partner. A TV station even came to do a feature on me, a housewife who started farming and found success. Before I knew it, the vegetables I grew had become popular. But I couldn't have done it alone. Many people helped me, and above all, it was the wisdom my father had passed on to me. Yet, there was still much to do. I was far from achieving the taste of my father's produce. As I clenched my fist, determined to work harder, that's when I heard it. What's this all about? A voice I thought I had pushed to the edge of my memory. As I was about to head to the field, I heard the forgotten voice and turned around. Robin! It had been years. I could barely recognize him as Robin, but there was still a semblance of him. It wasn't just aging. Robin, you've changed so much. Yeah, I'm shining, right? But forget that. Noticing my gaze fixed on his head, Robin yelled angrily. However, his anger didn't frighten me at all. It's almost laughable. I want to laugh. But I knew laughing would only make things more complicated, so I desperately tried to hold it back. My cheeks were trembling, trying to suppress a smile. What brings you here, Robin? It's been a long time. I thought we would never meet again. I never expected Robin to visit the family home again. Robin pointed to the house standing tall behind me. What is this? He yelled. What do you mean? It's the house where you were born and raised. I know that. But it used to be dirtier. Why is it so clean now? Indeed, the once old and dirty house I had considered selling had been refurbished and was now quite beautiful. Why? Because I had it repaired. Where did you get the money for that? I earned it. How? I wish he wouldn't yell every time. Although we are approaching our 60s, my hearing is still fine. You know I started farming, right? The vegetables I grew on the field I inherited became popular, and the business is thriving. What? After many struggles and hard work, my business had finally taken off. And then Robin showed up. I had a bad feeling, and as expected, Robin began to insinuate. So, that field had great value, huh? Huh? What are you talking about? There's no way a complete amateur like you could run a profitable farming business so easily. Of course, it wasn't easy at all. That land must have been golden soil, right? He completely disregarded all the hard work I'd put in. And what's this about golden soil? It must have been incredibly nutrient-rich, powerful soil, right? You knew that and kept quiet. No, what are you talking about? I know the law. If a property is later found to be more valuable, the inheritance can be redivided. I'm going to file an objection. We'll redo the inheritance division, and I'll take the field. Are you stupid? Yes, I'm stupid. I mean, no, I'm not. Honestly, he is being stupid. I don't know where he got his information, but flaunting such superficial knowledge is just foolish. Sighing deeply. The value of the field hasn't changed. I said. Liar! Why would I lie? If you doubt it, why don't you have a real estate agent or someone appraise the land? You said it, then I'll do just that. You'll regret this. I won't. The land prices around here haven't changed much since the beginning. Really? If you doubt it, ask a real estate agent, like I said. Robin's confidence seemed to wane as I firmly stated this. His face began to cloud over with doubt. But you're actually making a profit, right? It's because of the field, right? Because of the field. Look, yes, I started farming because I had that land, and as a result, it's been profitable. See, I told you so. Ah, he's so annoying. I was gradually getting fed up with Robin's complete misunderstanding. All right, enough. Fed up with the conversation, I shouted dismissively. Fine. Robin can use half of the field. Do whatever you like with it. Yeah. Robin, as if he had achieved complete victory, thrust his fist into the air. But despite my dismissive shout, I was quite calm inside. Well, let him try. Robin never helped with the farming when our parents were around. I wondered how he would approach it. I'll be watching closely. Help me! Wow, that was quick. It had only been a month since Robin started farming. I divided the field in half and let Robin use the barren part, but he gave up within just a month and came asking for help. Huh? Help with what? I have no clue what to do. I thought as much. The field was poorly maintained, with no preparation for planting whatsoever. What had he been doing this past month? It's strange, isn't it? This field is supposed to be golden soil, right? I sowed seeds, but why aren't they growing properly? Still on about the golden soil, huh? And thinking that just sowing seeds is enough? If it was that easy to grow delicious crops, everyone would be doing it. You need to study more. Maybe in a few years, it might become profitable? I was about to dismiss him, but then Robin, looking like he might cry, pleaded with me. Please, no snotty tears. Help me out. You're my sis, right? I don't want to think of someone who couldn't even come to our parents' final moments as a brother. Don't start calling me sis just because you need something. I coldly brushed him off, and Robin hung his head right there. I'm already busy with my own field. I got here with the help of many people. You should work hard and become someone who can also receive help. Like I said earlier, you need to persevere for a few years, and then. I can't afford to be leisurely about this. I was about to leave Robin, who showed no willingness to try, but then he looked at me with a serious expression. I can't wait years or even months. I'm on the brink of a debt repayment deadline. He shouted. Debt. Yes. I have huge debts. Why? You inherited $300,000 in cash, right? I spent it. What? I poured it all into gambling, and now it's all gone. What? I hated the idea of working again, so I tried to make a big win with loans, but that's gone too. Then I heard you were making money from farming, so I thought I'd try it too. But why isn't it working for me? Why am I not making any money? How should I know? I was astounded and lost for words. Robin had squandered the significant inheritance from our parents in just a few years. And now he thought he could easily make money from farming? It was ridiculous. Carol, please, I'm begging you to help. I refuse. No matter how much Robin pleaded, I couldn't bring myself to help him. Maybe if he had shown some determination to try on his own, I might have offered some assistance. But Robin was always relying on others. His irresponsibility unchanged. Please, help me. The debt collectors are coming soon. I left Robin shouting and walked away from the field. I don't know what became of him after that. I heard rumors that he was being chased by debt collectors. But nothing beyond that. Eventually, the field returned to my care. The farming, now on a larger scale, was going well. Justin, who helped on his days off, massaged my shoulders as I worked. Maybe I could join you in farming after I retire? Justin had recently suggested this. And it made me very happy. Our sons also seemed quite interested, maybe they'll join in too. The house and field protected by my father and loved by my mother. I wonder if my parents would be pleased to see them come back to life. Dad, Mom, I'll keep taking care of the field. Aiming to recreate the delicious vegetables they grew, I'll keep working hard. So please, both of you, watch over us. Grandma! This is Mia. Kevin's girlfriend, Mia, seemingly quiet woman with fair skin, greeted us with a nervous smile. I quickly ushered them inside the house. It was for a meet and greet that Kevin had brought her over, and my daughter-in-law, Chloe, was in good spirits, eagerly asking how the two had met. Evelyn, hurry up and serve them some coffee. Chloe's mood had soured just minutes earlier. The reason was Kevin had first told his parents that Mia was pregnant. I was so shocked I lost my voice. Chloe showed some discomfort at the fact they were having a shotgun wedding. We're serious about making this work. We know we're young, but please, allow us to marry. Both were sincerely asking for their parents' permission to marry. As a grandmother, I realized it was not my place to comment and silently watched, moved by their demeanor. However, Chloe made a visibly displeased face and waved her hand in front of her own face. A shotgun wedding is so tacky. Just because you're pregnant doesn't mean you have to marry, right? Isn't that right, Evelyn? Suddenly turned to me. What? I let out, as Chloe directed a sardonic smile my way. Yes, it's true. Just because there's a baby on the way doesn't necessarily mean marriage is a must. Kevin looked momentarily saddened. I had anticipated such a reaction. But you two are choosing to move forward because of this baby. Whatever the case, it's something Kevin and Mia have decided together. No one else has the right to object. Maybe what we can do, Chloe, is to support them, don't you think? Chloe downed her mug of coffee in one go. Evelyn, get me a refill, please. She handed it over, then crossed her arms and sighed. Well, opposing it is futile anyway. So, when are you planning the wedding? What? Oh, considering Mia's condition, we'd like to do it sooner rather than later. So, this means we're finally getting a break from parenting. Chloe said reflectively, then turned towards me in the kitchen. Now that we're going to be living as a family, we won't be needing a housekeeper anymore. Can you leave? What? The sudden words from Chloe took everyone by surprise. My son Charles, Kevin, and Mia were all left speechless. What am I supposed to do now? My name is Evelyn. I'm a 70-year-old grandmother. I live with my only son Charles, his wife Chloe, and their family in a 2-generation home. Though it may seem happy from the outside, I've felt somewhat downcast since losing my husband a few years ago. Chloe, my son's wife, is outspoken and tends to say whatever comes to her mind, and while we're not on bad terms, I've felt her using me for convenience. When Chloe goes out with friends, she takes for granted that I'll do the household chores and even asks me to drive her to the station. Chloe seems to think living together in a 2-generation home is her way of showing filial piety. Contrary to my wish for a quiet life after my husband's death, I find myself entangled in a complicated situation. Come on, get up already. From the bedroom of my son and his wife, Chloe's almost shrieking voice can be heard. Ah, she seems to be in a bad mood again. Though Charles was working till late last night, he was woken up at the usual time on his day off and hurried to get ready to go out. I quietly spoke to Charles when I encountered him in the washroom. Charles, are you okay? I'm fine, got about 5 hours of sleep. Charles smiled gently at me through the mirror while drying his face with a towel. Lately, Charles has been looking pale, and I've been worried. Despite my concerns, Charles would brush it off with, "I'm fine," which was something my husband used to say. He kept working until one day, he suddenly collapsed and passed away. That memory is always with me, and I wish Charles could rest more on his days off. Loud footsteps approached. Chloe appears at the bathroom, frowning and visibly annoyed. How long are you going to wash your face? Hurry up, I'll be late for my meeting with friends. I'm sorry, I'll change right away. The meek Charles quickly left to change his clothes. Meanwhile, Chloe turned to me and handed over a note. Evelyn, this is the shopping list for today. Yes, I got it. Have fun with your friends. The weather seems nice today. Please wash the bed sheets as well. Chloe left without waiting for my reply. After watching her brazen departure, I sighed deeply. Even when my husband was alive, Chloe had always been bold in speaking her mind to us. In the beginning of our living together. Don't hold back. I had said to Chloe, but as time went on, her aggressive nature became more apparent. Cooking, which Chloe disliked, fell to me. If she disliked a dish, she would push the plate away saying, I told you I can't eat this, didn't I? Or she would complain about wrinkles in the laundry I had folded. Still, since she was chosen by my son Charles, I tried to keep a quiet smile and avoid causing trouble, but since my husband passed, Chloe's attitude has become more extreme, tiring my spirit. Evelyn, you're staying home all day, right? Make sure the bath is ready for me when I get back. Chloe said this without even looking at me as she left the house. Chloe goes out with her friends almost every week. Since the beginning of her marriage, she has seldom done housework or childcare, focusing more on her appearance and spending freely. She's very sociable, making acquaintances in various places. There were many instances that could have led to suspicions of infidelity when Chloe was younger, but Charles, she wouldn't do that. Trusted her without a doubt, so I didn't pursue it. I was surprised to see Charles, looking sleepy as he entered with his hands full of confectionery boxes upon returning from seeing off Chloe. Oh, this? It's for Chloe's class reunion next week. She's planning to give them out. Really? All of this? Chloe doesn't want to be embarrassed. She keeps saying she doesn't want people to think we're living with our parents because we're struggling for money. I'm sorry, but just let her do as she pleases. Of course, it's all right, don't worry. Sitting in the chair, I felt an overwhelming sense of exhaustion. Eventually, I took the list Chloe had given me and went out for the shopping. My familiar shoes felt heavier than usual. Perhaps due to my age, I often feel a dull pain in my knees with every step. Yet, imagining Chloe's likely snide remarks about wasting gas, I gently stroked my knees, encouraging them to keep going. Returning home, sweating and carrying shopping bags in both hands. I set down the bags at the entrance and stretched my bent back when my grandson Kevin appeared. Oh, Grandma, welcome back. No wonder you weren't home, you went out shopping. Kevin frowned slightly as he looked at the groceries I had bought. Kevin, the only son of Charles and Chloe, had become less visible around the house since starting his job last spring. Though we live together, he's often busy with work, coming home late and leaving early in the morning. And on his days off, he dresses up and goes out. It's rare for Kevin to be at home during the daytime on a weekend. Before I could even take off my shoes, Kevin took the shopping bags to the kitchen and began putting things away quickly. I glimpsed his expression and sensed a happy atmosphere. Did something good happen? Kevin smiled as he carefully placed eggs from a carton into the refrigerator. Actually, there's someone I want to introduce to you. I'm thinking of bringing her home next week. Introduce someone? As I processed what that meant, I realized my grandson had reached the age for such things. Introduce someone? Could it be what I'm thinking? It might be. Grandma, there's something I've been thinking about for a long time. Something you've been thinking about? Yes. I can't talk about it just yet, but I promise I will someday. But first, would you meet the person I want to introduce? Kevin spoke with excitement, and I couldn't help but smile. I was curious about what he had been thinking about, but more so about the kind of woman he would bring home. Growing up, Kevin had never brought a girlfriend home. His absence from home since starting his job, I realized, might have been due to dating. For the first time in a while, I forgot about the usual annoyances and hummed a tune while cleaning. Of course, I had informed Chloe and Charles about this matter, but Charles only muttered, "Marriage, huh?" while Chloe was amused. On their next day off, Kevin brought the woman he wanted to introduce to our home. Chloe had asked me to clean up the front of the house, and while I was sprinkling water, I became a bit wary when an unfamiliar car stopped, but seeing my grandson waving from the driver's seat with a smile, I felt relieved. The car was a rental. Perhaps Kevin had gone to the trouble of renting a car to pick her up. I almost laughed inwardly, thinking Kevin must be quite smitten. "Grandma, this is Mia." I couldn't help but smile at the sight of my grandson's happy face as he introduced the woman next to him. Kevin's girlfriend, Mia, seemingly quiet woman with fair skin, greeted us with a nervous smile. I quickly led the two inside. It was for a meet and greet that Kevin had brought her over, and Chloe, in a good mood, eagerly asked how the two had become acquainted. Chloe and Charles sat at a table set for four, facing Kevin and Mia, while I prepared coffee for everyone in the kitchen. "Evelyn, hurry up and serve them some coffee." Chloe's mood had turned sour just minutes before. The reason was that Kevin had first told his parents that Mia was pregnant. I was so shocked I lost my voice. The previously warm atmosphere froze in an instant, with Kevin showing a seriousness which he usually does not. Chloe displayed some discomfort at the fact they were having a shotgun wedding. "We're serious about making this work. We might be young, but please, allow us to marry." Both were earnestly asking their parents' permission to marry. As a grandmother, I realized it was not my place to comment and silently watched, moved by their demeanor. Watching Kevin plead before his parents, I felt tears welling up. "Of course, we support your marriage. For the baby's sake, it's better to marry soon and settle down mentally." "Thanks, Dad," Kevin said with a smile, looking at Mia. Chloe made a visibly displeased face and waved her hand in front of her own face. "Shotgun weddings are so tacky. Can you even explain how this happened, Mia?" Taken aback by such an unexpected question, Mia was surprised. "What? And looked down at the table. Kevin quickly placed his hand on her shoulder. "Times have changed, this kind of marriage isn't unusual anymore. Besides, we have our own ways of thinking and are ready to work hard." "Kevin, you offered to marry because Mia got pregnant, didn't you? Are you sure this is a well-thought-out decision? Our relationship was serious from the start, aiming for marriage. It just happened that the baby gave us a good opportunity. Just because there's a baby doesn't mean you have to marry, right? Isn't that right, Evelyn?" Chloe suddenly turned to me. "What?" I let out, as Chloe directed a sardonic smile my way. Recalling a TV segment on single mothers we watched as a family recently, indeed. Having a baby doesn't necessarily lead to marriage, but this situation seemed different. Yes, it's true. Just because there's a baby on the way doesn't mean marriage is a must. Kevin looked momentarily saddened. I had anticipated such a reaction. So, I had prepared my next words carefully, thinking I'd proudly tell Kevin about it later. "But, you two are choosing to move forward because of this baby. Whatever the case, it's a decision made by Kevin and Mia together. No one else has the right to object. Maybe what we can do, Chloe, is to support them, don't you think?" An old person making irresponsible statements. What would she say next? Everyone probably wondered, but Chloe downed her mug of coffee in one go. Evelyn, get me a refill, please. She handed it over, then crossed her arms and sighed. Well, opposing it is futile anyway. So, when are you planning the wedding? What? Oh, considering Mia's condition, we'd like to do it sooner rather than later. So, this means we're finally getting a break from parenting. Chloe said wistfully, then turned to face me, who was standing in the kitchen. Since the family will be living together from now on, can we ask you, the no longer needed housekeeper, to leave? What? My son is getting married, and we want to live with just our cherished family from now on. Charles, taken aback by Chloe's sudden words, and both Kevin and Mia were left speechless in shock. Once Kevin's child is born, they'll likely live here for a while, right? We don't want to trouble you with the baby's night crying. No, I'm fine with that. If there's anything I can do. I can't think of any advantage to living with someone who's likely to become a care-dependent elderly. You're no longer needed, so could you please leave? Feeling as if my heart was being torn out, I didn't want to worry Kevin and the others, so You're absolutely right. Tried to smile bravely. At that time, I didn't take Chloe's words seriously. But day by day, Chloe's efforts to drive me out of the house became more blatant. Please leave as soon as possible. She kept on saying so. When I consulted with Charles, the timid man could only hold his head and stay silent. What was especially shocking was the realization that Chloe was almost entirely in control of the inheritance from my husband, including the house. My husband, being a man of small desires, had left everything to our son Charles with the intention that all his property would be passed on to him. Effectively, I had no assets or property of my own. And since Charles was under Chloe's thumb, I was stunned to find myself stripped of both my home and inheritance. What should I do now? I murmured while looking through old albums of my late husband and I in the middle of the night. He was always gentle, never angry, just calm. Was it his nature that allowed Chloe to become so selfish? If so, I felt like the cause was both my husband and myself. Months passed. Despite the daily harassment from Chloe, unable to leave, I lived enduring it all. One day, while I was taking a shower, the water suddenly turned cold. I worried it was broken, but it seemed Chloe had turned off the water heater's power. Thinking she probably didn't know I was in the bath, I turned the power back on, but it was immediately turned off again. Realizing it was harassment. Could you not turn off the power while I'm bathing? I asked. It's a waste of electricity. Only to be shouted at. There were even times in the dead of winter when I had to rinse off with cold water. Exhausted, I consulted Charles. Could you bathe while Chloe is out? But he could only weakly suggest. Wondering how he became so spineless, I sighed in disbelief. Even as Chloe said with a snide smile every time we met. Please rent an apartment and live there as soon as possible. I was powerless to do anything. Amidst these oppressive days, a piece of bright news was brought in. Mia had finally given birth to a healthy baby. For a moment, Chloe and I celebrated wholeheartedly, tears in our eyes as we laughed together. Now, if only you'd leave the house quickly, I'd truly be happy. Chloe's smile suddenly turned cold as she spoke to me. I doubted the woman's character before me. Charles looked away, pretending to be engrossed in the newspaper, as if he had nothing to do with it. Though Chloe was the one who strongly wished for Kevin and his wife to stay at our home, she wanted nothing to do with the baby's care. I did everything I could to help Mia, who always deeply thanked me despite being overwhelmed with caring for the baby. Thank you so much for everything. Don't worry about it. You're going through the hardest time right now, and if there's anything I can do to help, I will. That was a heartfelt sentiment from me. After a particularly busy few months, Kevin suddenly said to me, "I have something important to tell you." "I'm listening," I responded while preparing dinner in the kitchen. Without stopping my chopping, I waited for Kevin to speak. "Grandma, I want to talk to you alone. There's a place I want you to come to this Sunday. Let's keep it a secret from Mom and Dad." My hand holding the knife stopped. A secret from Chloe. When I looked at Kevin, he had a subtle smile as if trying to hide his joy. It was a look he often had as a child when he was plotting something secretly to make me happy. Kevin had always been close to me and my late husband since he was little. Looking back, maybe Chloe felt that her only son's affections were being stolen by me and my husband. That wouldn't have been fun for Chloe. Probably that feeling continues, and Kevin realized that when I'm with Chloe, I feel intimidated and can't speak my mind. I felt dearly loved by my kind grandson and his wife. Next Sunday, Kevin, Mia, and the baby led me to a newly built apartment, about a 10-minute walk from our house. Kevin shared that he had purchased this apartment before the baby was born as we walked. I was deeply surprised by his decisiveness to buy it without consulting Chloe, who had strongly suggested living together. "Sorry for making you walk, Grandma. I need to strengthen my legs anyway. This distance is nothing." I lightly tapped my thin legs. Though just a 10-minute walk made my knees ache, I resolved not to mention it. The new apartment room was furnished simply, with boxes in the corner. Presumably belonging to Mia, who used to live alone before she got married. Kevin, familiar with the place, started making coffee in the kitchen, while Mia was putting the baby to sleep in another room. "So, there's something I wanted to ask you." Kevin began speaking seriously after a brief pause. The ticking of the clock on the wall seemed unusually loud. "Would you live with us?" I was so surprised by the sudden proposal that I nearly dropped my mug. Kevin looked at me earnestly. Thinking it was a joke, I returned a strained smile, and Kevin looked away distantly. "Ever since I was a child, I couldn't stand seeing Mom treating you so badly." "Well, your mom has a bit of a strong personality, but..." "You're always being told to leave the house, aren't you? Dad won't talk back, and I can't stand to see you being treated so poorly by Mom anymore." "What are you talking about? I'm being treated fine." "Remember when I said I had someone I wanted to introduce to you? I've been thinking about something for a long time." I vaguely remembered such a conversation. It was a while ago, but I distinctly remembered Kevin speaking with an implication of determination when he talked about getting married. "I've been cherished by you and Grandpa since I was little, and I loved both of you. But somehow, I felt Mom was very rude towards you too. I've always watched the two of you and thought that when I grew up, I wanted to help." "Kevin, did you really think that way?" Kevin leaned forward decisively, looking into my eyes. "Let's live together. There's no need for you to suffer alone in that house." Unable to respond, Mia quietly returned and sat next to Kevin. Mia seemed to have listened to the conversation from the next room and looked at me solemnly, understanding the context. "Kevin told me about it. Would it be possible for you to live with us? That's a very kind offer. I'm truly happy. But I don't want to intrude on your newlywed life. That's not a problem at all. We need your help as an experienced parent, and it would be reassuring to have you live with us." And apparently, Mia had also been subjected to Chloe's harassment, feeling disgusted with her. Mia had been scorned for having a shotgun wedding and had been yelled at to quiet the baby during night crying. Initially, Mia had wanted to move back to her parents' house after giving birth, but... "So you hate being with me, I understand." Chloe would say so every time, and Mia was tired of explaining. "We're asking you. Please, would you live with us? Kevin and Mia pleaded together. Silently watching them, I felt tears streaming down my face. Thank you. At that moment, no other words came to mind. Thus, it was decided that I would live with Kevin and his family. Of course, this news would soon reach Chloe's ears. As soon as I agreed to move in, Kevin apparently contacted Chloe and Charles. This was something I had asked Kevin to do. I was certain Chloe would strongly oppose to it. Telling myself this was my final battle, I left Kevin and his family at the apartment and headed home, opening the front door. As soon as I returned, Chloe summoned me to the living room and began yelling at me furiously. What do you mean you're going to live with Kevin? You're joking, right? No. I'm grateful for Kevin's offer and I've decided to accept it. You're kidding, right? Chloe scoffed. Beside her, Charles frowned, his face troubled. Moving in with a newlywed couple? That doesn't sound sane. It's obvious you'll be a burden to Kevin. I was worried about that too. But both of them have accepted me. I want to honestly accept their feelings. How could this be happening? You say something too, will you? Until then, Charles had been silent, now staring at Chloe with a vacant look in his eyes. His gaze was powerless, his body seemed to slump. Chloe, I want a divorce. What? What is it with you all of a sudden? I can't take this life anymore. Charles, usually quiet, raised his voice, causing Chloe to step back in surprise. He stood up, confronted Chloe directly, and glared at her with intense eyes. I can't continue with you. Not just your attitude towards me, but what you've done to Mom all this time, I could never forgive. What the heck? You're not used to getting angry, don't start now. The problem here right now is about Evelyn living with Kevin, isn't it? Mom is going to live with Kevin. That's the end of that discussion. Now, it's about you and me. I can't live with you anymore. Why is this suddenly coming up? I've been tolerating your attitude because Mom put up with it. But if Mom's moving out to live with Kevin, that's a different story. Now it's about you and me. I want to divorce you for all the suspicious acts and alleged affairs since we were young. I haven't done anything like that. Chloe, unusually flustered, looked away, her eyes darting around. Charles was gentle, but when he got angry as a child, he was unstoppable. Probably, Chloe had never seen Charles angry. When he did get angry, he would meticulously prepare to thoroughly defeat his opponent. As expected, Charles casually pulled out a large brown envelope from his company bag and spread its contents messily on the table. It was a report from an infidelity investigation conducted years ago, proving Chloe's affair without needing to read the details. Chloe was speechless and slumped into her seat. Without another word, Charles returned to his room. I noticed the living room curtains fluttering. So, the window was open. Feeling the gentle breeze coming through the window, I wondered if our embarrassing conversation had been overheard by the neighbors and massaged my temples. Chloe, I can't say anything about you and Charles, but I hope you two can talk it through properly. Chloe just sat there silently, not answering. Then, it came to a lawsuit because Chloe refused to divorce, but the investigation into the affair was the final blow, and the divorce was finalized. I heard rumors that Chloe didn't change her aggressive self even after the divorce, and people gradually distanced themselves from her, leading her to live lonely days. By the time the divorce was finalized, I had already been living with Kevin and the others for 6 months now. I was feeling happy every day, helping with the care of my great-grandchild. Then one day, Grandma, Dad's here. Returning from a walk with my great-grandchild, Charles was sitting in the apartment living room with a serious expression on his face. Seeing my son's face for the first time in 6 months since I left the house, he seemed somewhat healthier. After laying down the great-grandchild I was holding to bed, I smiled at Charles. "Have you been able to sleep since the divorce?" "Thanks to you, I've been getting about 8 hours." Charles said this with a brighter expression than I had ever seen before. That's right, my son was someone who used to show such innocent smiles. Even though he has aged and grown a beard, I couldn't help but reminisce about his youthful appearance and laugh bitterly at the comparison to his present self. "So, what brings you here today? Don't tell me you want to live with us?" Well, that's actually why I came. Of course, I'll contribute to the new home expenses as well. Of course. You're now able to properly manage your finances after the divorce. I've already settled things with Kevin and Mia. We're thinking of purchasing this apartment with the inheritance left by Dad, who passed away, in a way that the two of them would agree with. And from now on, I'll be able to protect you, Mom. Originally, Charles was timid by nature but never was a weak man. I'm sure it was the result of him carefully considering his future and taking action after the divorce from Chloe. I looked at my son, my grandson, Mia, and my great-grandchild in turn and closed my eyes. The image of my late husband appeared behind my eyelids. With a peaceful expression. "Isn't that wonderful?" It seemed like my late husband was smiling. "What's so wonderful about it? You've put me through so much trouble. If you had lived a little longer, maybe I would have been happier." Thinking this, I then reconsidered. My current happiness is thanks to Kevin and Mia, who wished for my happiness. My gratitude towards these two cannot be fully expressed in words. Suddenly, my great-grandchild started crying as if a fire had been lit, and I quickly rushed to the bed and picked him up. After rocking him a few times, my great-grandchild fell completely at ease in my arms and started breathing softly in sleep. "My Emily is the cutest in the venue, isn't she?" Daniel said with a laugh, addressing Emily. "Even though I'm right in front of them, this is how they treat me. It seems nothing but a joke to me." Then Emily, seeing me, burst out laughing. "What? Your wife is ugly." "That's it, I can't take it anymore. I'm calling off the marriage." I said that straight to Daniel. "My name is Addison. I'm turning 29 this year. I've always loved numbers, and now I work in general affairs. I think this job suits my serious nature. Currently, I'm intensely studying for a qualification. The man I was supposed to marry is named Daniel. I met Daniel at a party. I had never been in a relationship with a man before. I lacked confidence and couldn't initiate conversations with men. As my friends began marrying off, I started attending parties in a rush. That's when I got accustomed to parties and met Daniel. My first impression of Daniel was that he was cool and refreshing. When we talked at the party, I enjoyed conversing with him a lot. Daniel, an elite at a major pharmaceutical company, is the same age as me. Even his academic background is impeccable. Yet, he's unpretentious and always brings up fun topics. I mistook his familiarity with women as just an act at first. Eventually, we became a couple. I was surprised that I could become a couple with him. I thought I had used up all my luck and love for being chosen by such a wonderful person. When we became a couple, he smiled at me and said, "I'm so glad you chose me. I'm such a lucky guy." But really, I was the one chosen by him. So I said, "I'm super happy too. But why did you choose me?" I asked him. I was genuinely insecure about being a match for someone as great as him. But he just laughed and replied, "I like girls who aren't experienced with guys and seem pure. You're my ideal." "Then that's great. Looking forward to being with you," I said, smiling back at him. After that, he regularly asked me out on dates. On our third date, he confessed, and we started dating. Half a year later, he proposed. I liked him, so I immediately said yes. That's great. Let's be happy together, he said with a smile. Living for 29 years, I had finally grasped happiness. I would become even happier after getting married. I believed so. But my expectations crumbled to nothing. Because after we got engaged and started living together, he changed. While dating. Addison, you're really cute. My princess. He always praised me with a smile. But now, that's a thing of the past. Lately, he's always belittling me. For instance, the day after we started living together. I got up earlier than him that day and started preparing breakfast. I planned to do my makeup before leaving for work, so I was cooking without it. When breakfast was ready and set on the table, he woke up. I called out to him with a smile. Good morning, Daniel. Breakfast is ready, let's eat together. Then he, seeing me, yelled in surprise. What an awful face you have. A woman without makeup in the morning isn't a woman. At least make yourself presentable, he shouted, furrowing his brow. His eyes were like those looking at something filthy. In a panic, I retorted. I was going to do my makeup later. Isn't that too harsh? You used to call me cute before we got engaged. I was shocked by his words. But he just laughed and added insult to injury. It was just flattery to get married. Honestly, any woman with a decent income who'd do as I say would have been fine, he said, laughing. I was so shocked that I dropped my fork. At that point, I wondered if I should really marry him, but we had already paid a deposit for the wedding venue. Besides, there was no guarantee of finding another partner if I let him go. I had no romantic prospects before meeting him. And maybe, just maybe, he might return to his kinder self. Holding on to that faint hope, I had no choice but to endure his harsh words. His behavior and words became increasingly unbearable. Especially concerning finances. He stopped contributing to our previously split living expenses. Could you please contribute to the living expenses? It's tough for me to cover everything with my salary alone. I pleaded with him on a day off. But he half-heartedly dismissed me. The wedding costs a lot, right? I'm broke from that expense, so you could at least pay the living expenses. However, he wasn't bearing the full cost of the wedding. There would be gift money, and his share of expenses should be less. No matter how I tried to convince him, he wouldn't listen. Moreover, he never helped with wedding preparations, even when I discussed the dress fittings. Even when I consulted about a dress meeting. Why do I care about a dress? It's a woman's thing, right? You just decide whatever. That's how he responded. And there were issues with his friends too. He seemed to have many friends, as his mobile phone frequently rang. Often, calls were from women I didn't know. When I questioned him, suspecting infidelity. They're just friends. Jealousy is unattractive. He dismissed it entirely. Unable to ask more, I was left in the dark until one night I overheard something shocking. It was when I woke up in the middle of the night. I usually slept with him in the bedroom, but that night, thirsty and awake, I noticed he wasn't there. I heard voices from the living room. He was on the phone. Daniel? I was about to open the door to the living room, but his words stopped me. Our apartment walls are thin, so conversations are usually audible. I wished I had married Emily, he said, laughing. And Emily's voice, loud enough through the phone, responded. But you'll quit your job someday, right? I want someone who can really provide. She laughed. Her voice was unbearably annoying. It was clear she was flirting with Daniel and aware of his attraction. But Daniel continued the call unfazed. It was really great when I was dating you. You're so cute. Should we get back together? Emily burst into laughter at his suggestion. That would be sad for your fiancé, wouldn't it? Though I'm definitely cuter. She laughed. Daniel continued to badmouth me with ease. I shed a tear at his cruelty. and whispered quietly, so as not to be heard in the next room. "Daniel, you never really loved me. I thought I could finally be happy." I cried, stifling my voice so he wouldn't notice. Unaware of me, they continued their sweet conversation. Their phone call was hellish for me to overhear. Why did I rush into this marriage? I muttered, crying. He was definitely cheating, and it seemed unlikely he'd return to the kind man he was before we lived together. But the wedding was only a week away. What should I do? I could only despair about the future. Then came the wedding day. Daniel and I were preparing in the dressing room. Our families had already entered the ceremony hall, leaving us alone. Just waiting for the attendant to arrive, we heard a knock. "Come in, please." I invited them in, thinking it was the attendant. However, the person who entered the dressing room wasn't the attendant, but a woman in a pink dress. "Excuse me." I froze at that familiar voice. It was the woman on the phone with Daniel that night. I instinctively knew it. As I stood there, stunned, Daniel spoke in an excited tone. "Ah, if it isn't Emily. You made it here without getting lost," he said, patting Emily's head. I was baffled by his words and actions, and she looked at him and happily responded. "Daniel gave me the room number. But is this woman your marriage partner?" She laughed, looking at me. "Yeah, that's right." "Oh, really? Such a plain dress for the main character of the day. It's quite dull." She critically eyed my dress from top to bottom, irritated by her assertive words. I replied, "This is the dressing room. The attendant will be here soon, so could you please leave now?" I said to her in a stern tone. Then she quickly hid behind Daniel. "No way, jealousy? This woman is glaring at me, it's really scary. Daniel, help me." She feigned fear. "Addison, jealousy is unbecoming. She's an important person to me, don't be mean," he admonished me. He couldn't see her face behind his back, but she was smirking at me. Her flashy makeup and perfectly styled hair were apparent. She was probably around the same age as me. She spoke with a triumphant look at me. "Daniel really should have married me instead. You'll get bored of such a plain woman in 3 days, won't you?" She laughed. "Indeed. I wouldn't choose a woman like this unless she had a decent income. She's not my type," he said, looking down on me. I remained silent on purpose. I thought I'd let them talk as they pleased for a bit longer. I clenched the hem of my dress. "I really wanted to marry you. Even if we can't be a real couple, you will always be the wife of my heart. Daniel, even if you're married, we'll always be together, right? Such an ugly woman is just for the money." She laughed brightly. "That's right. We'll always be together. I'll quit my job and live off Addison's money with you." He made an outrageous proposal to her. At that moment, I was on the verge of exploding. What did these two think of me? But they were oblivious to my anger. "Daniel, you're terrible to your wife. Are you proposing that because I'm cuter?" she asked him with upturned eyes. He nodded as if it were obvious. "My Emily is the cutest in the venue, right? What do you think of Addison's face, Emily?" Daniel asked with a sarcastic smile, turning to Emily. Despite my presence, this was how they treated me. It seemed nothing but a joke to me. Then Emily, seeing me, burst out laughing. "What? Your wife is ugly." And she continued, "Poor Daniel, marrying such an ugly woman. I'll soothe you as your heart's wife," she said, looking down on me with a laugh. "That's right, isn't it?" Daniel laughed too. "That's it, I can't take it anymore. I'm calling off the marriage." I said that straight to Daniel. He, not taking me seriously. "Really? If you cancel the marriage with me, you'll stay single forever. Because you're an unfixable ugly woman." He started laughing. Emily too. "Daniel, you're too honest. I'm laughing so hard, my stomach hurts. She clutched her stomach, laughing uproariously. After laughing, Daniel said, "A woman like you should be grateful to get married. You'll support me with your money for life." I felt a deep rage boiling inside me. Frustrated at myself for not seeing through such a person before the wedding. I clenched my fists, trying to endure. Emily, still laughing. "Well, the wedding ceremony is about to start, right? I have to go eat my share of the celebration money, so I'll head to the venue first," she said and left the room. Shortly after, the attendant arrived. Seemingly unaware of the conversation in the dressing room, the attendant began preparations, congratulating us. Then the attendant started explaining the wedding. Daniel and I had chosen a restaurant wedding, starting with the reception. According to the attendant, we just had to follow the MC's lead. I listened quietly to the attendant's explanation. Daniel spoke to me nonchalantly. "Once the wedding is over and we're officially married, we'll be husband and wife. Your looks are a letdown, but I'll put up with it. After all, I have Emily." I ignored his comment. I had no intention of listening to him anymore. I was done with this man. Daniel persisted. "Hey! Answer me." But I continued to ignore him. All that was left was to exact revenge and denounce him and his actions. I felt a sense of mission burning within me. Then Daniel and I entered the wedding venue. The unsuspecting attendees gave us a generous round of applause. Of course, among them was Emily, smirking unpleasantly. We sat down, and the MC proceeded with the ceremony. "Let's start with the vows. First, the groom, Daniel." Amidst thunderous applause, Daniel began speaking. "I am overjoyed to marry Addison. I vow to love only her for the rest of my life." He looked at me with a smug face. All lies. Inside, I looked at him with a cold detachment. Amidst the applause, the MC continued. "Thank you. Now, a response from the bride, Addison, please." I ignored the MC and remained silent. A murmur started spreading through the venue. My parents and friends looked worried. "Addison? Could we have your response, please?" The MC tried to proceed, albeit confused. Still, I remained silent. The venue became more unsettled. Everyone looked at me with concern. Impatient. "Addison, why are you silent? Just say something," Daniel harshly said. But I kept quiet. The atmosphere in the venue turned decidedly strange. The in-laws looked at me with puzzled expressions. Enough was enough. I had gathered enough attention. I thought so and opened my mouth. Glancing sideways, I saw Daniel relieved that I was finally going to speak. I confirmed his face and momentarily smirked. It was too early for him to feel relieved. Then I began speaking. "I will not vow to love Daniel. I'm breaking up with him right now." "What?" Daniel was stunned, and I casually played the voice recorder at maximum volume. Daniel and Emily's conversation filled the room. "I really wanted to marry Emily. Even if we can't be a real couple, Emily is the wife of my heart. Daniel, we'll always be together even if you're married, right? Such an ugly woman is just for the money." The conversation from the dressing room earlier echoed through the venue. Previously, when Daniel was on the phone with Emily at night, I felt frustrated for not having proof of infidelity. So, I bought a voice recorder. I always carried it with me, and fortunately, I managed to record their conversation today. The crowd became even more agitated. My friends looked at Daniel with suspicion. My dad seemed ready to get up and punch Daniel, held back only by my mom. My mother-in-law looked like she might faint, and father-in-law John hurriedly supported her. Emily, sitting at a table with friends, was being glared at by those around her. She was sweating profusely and looked extremely uncomfortable. Meanwhile, the recording continued to play. In this chaotic situation, Daniel, confused, shouted, "Addison, what are you doing? Stop that voice recorder right now. He tried to grab the recorder from me, but I swiftly dodged him. Then I shouted loudly. There's no way I'll stop it. Everyone needs to know that Daniel is cheating with Emily over there. I glared at Daniel. Unable to hold back anymore, Emily shouted from her table. You're so sneaky. Just because you get to be Daniel's wife. The one Daniel truly cares about is cute me. However, Emily's outburst caused the venue to buzz with a different energy, whispering among themselves. Everyone, regardless of age or gender. Seeing this, Emily began to panic. What's going on, everyone? What's the matter? I calmly told her. Emily, sorry to interrupt your confident speech, but I think you're the ugliest person in this venue. Someone laughed out loud. Immediately, her face turned bright red. What? What are you talking about? Daniel told me I'm the cutest, you know? Maybe you're the one with bad eyesight? She retorted sharply at me. Laughter began to leak from the audience. Emily and Daniel started to look confused. Then one of Daniel's friends burst out laughing and shouted, Daniel, you've got terrible taste in women. Liking a girl with a face like a panda. And her body's like a panda too. Following this comment from Daniel's friend, the whole venue erupted into laughter. What? Aren't you being rude? Emily yelled at Daniel's friend, but her voice was drowned out by the laughter. Yes, she did look like a panda. First, her makeup heavily lined around the eyes. With her small eyes, she really resembled a panda. And her body was full-figured, making her pink dress seem tight. Her upper arms jiggled violently with every movement. I was worried her pink dress might rip at any moment. The moment I saw her in the dressing room, I realized Daniel's taste was too peculiar. It made sense why he would call me ugly. I borrowed a microphone from the MC. She called me ugly in the dressing room, but I wasn't upset at all. After all, she is a panda. It's amusing to be insulted by a zoo animal, isn't it? As I spoke clearly, laughter erupted from various parts of the venue. Her face turned beet red with frustration. So frustrating! She stamped her feet in anger. Daniel glared at me. I sighed heavily at the two of them. People who cheat have no right to glare at me. Daniel and Emily remained silent, hit by the truth. Then I addressed the silent couple. I'll be sure to collect the engagement breakup fee from both of you. They immediately became defensive upon hearing about the fee. Why should we pay a breakup fee when we aren't even registered as married? I absolutely won't pay. I won't either. I'm a freelancer, I don't have that kind of money, Emily exclaimed. The crowd looked on in disbelief at their comments. Some even chuckled at their ridiculousness. Then a person stood up and approached us. Daniel, enough is enough. Daniel's boss, with a red face, yelled. Boss! This is, Daniel, looking perplexed, tried to make an excuse to his boss. But he seemed at a loss for words and remained confused. The boss sighed heavily at his demeanor. What an irreparable thing you've done. Cheating openly in front of Addison, maybe it's my fault for not educating you properly, the boss said, holding his head. His face turning pale. He seemed to be trembling slightly. Emily, looking puzzled, said, That ugly woman is from a different company than Daniel, right? Why is Daniel's boss so worried about it? She asked, tilting her head. Sensing something off from the boss's reaction, Daniel asked, Boss, what's wrong? My engagement breakup with Addison has nothing to do with you, right? He asked nonchalantly. Then the boss, face red with anger, shouted, Don't you know our company's board of directors? Don't you recognize Addison's dad? He yelled desperately. Daniel looked back and forth between the boss and my dad. No way, he muttered. His face turned pale. My dad's face was red with rage, veins popping. I am a director at your company. Your future will be discussed at the board meeting. Daniel was shocked. He tried to appease my dad in a panic. Wait, please. It's too much for this incident to lead to that. Daniel's friends were also surprised. They were all his colleagues, so bewildered by this turn of events. It's natural to be confused when the bride's dad is a director at your own company. Then my dad said calmly, "Weren't you planning to quit the company and live off my daughter? You just played it on the voice recorder. If you're so eager to leave the company, why don't you do it now?" That's... Daniel's face was filled with despair. And with Dad's words, Daniel's mother finally fainted. His father, John, was frantically calling her name. For her, Daniel was probably the pride and joy of the family. A well-educated graduate working in a major corporation. He must have been on a seemingly perfect elite path. But now, this incident not only derailed his elite trajectory but also cast his future into uncertainty. I had only met the in-laws once at a greeting. But they seemed like very nice and sensible people. That's why this incident must have been incredibly hard for her to accept. Daniel looked terribly bewildered by his mother fainting. And then, incredibly, Daniel yelled at me. "If you had told me your dad was a director at our company, I would have treated you better." He accused me, completely disregarding his own actions. He seems to be pretending that nothing happened to him. That was the last straw for me. Daniel blaming me in such a situation. I didn't care what happened to him anymore. I asked Daniel with a smile. "Treat me better? Like contributing to our living expenses during cohabitation? Or not contributing money but at least staying out of housework? That's..." He faltered. I exposed to everyone that Daniel didn't contribute to living expenses and yet interfered in household matters. Daniel was now subjected to even more disdainful looks from the crowd. Especially the women there didn't seem to see him as a human anymore. Maybe they thought even a weed would be better than him. Even Emily said to him, "Daniel, you didn't pay any living expenses at all? That's really bad, isn't it?" He, realizing the gravity of the situation, turned even paler. I smiled at him. "Good for you, Daniel. You wanted to quit your job, right? You'll probably be able to quit very soon." He looked around. Dad, glaring at him in rage. Friends looking at him with disdain. Emily, a bit in disbelief. Not a single person was on his side. In such a situation, most people couldn't stand it. Then he began to tremble and clung to me. "Addison, I was wrong. Please don't call off the engagement. I don't want to quit my job." He apologized profusely. Sweat on his forehead. It was too late for apologies. I looked at him with cold eyes. "It's over, Daniel. After being looked down upon like this, there's no going back. Just stop it." "But..." He looked like he was about to cry. I added the final blow. Freelancer Emily and soon-to-be unemployed Daniel, a perfect match. Emily turned pale as well. If she were burdened with an unemployed Daniel, they would both be in trouble. Quickly, Emily distanced herself from Daniel. And then, Daniel collapsed, his knees giving way. "Don't ever show up in front of me again." I left the two of them behind and exited the venue in my wedding dress. Eventually, he left the company. The company's decision was a demotion in the guise of a department transfer. A department where his main job was sorting documents. However, many company associates had witnessed his debacle at the wedding. Leading them was our dad, a director of the company. The smart ones started keeping their distance from Daniel, and it seems he was secretly condemned by many. Consequently, he found it increasingly difficult to stay at the company. Eventually, unable to bear it, he submitted his resignation before the transfer. But leaving the company brought him further trials. It was the hefty breakup fee. The engagement breakup fee was just the going rate, not too high. But we added the wedding costs on top of it. Since the wedding turned out that way, we had to return the congratulatory money to all the guests. But the food was served, and the full cost of the wedding had to be paid. He was responsible for the disruption of the wedding, so it was decided that he would bear the cost. Daniel's parents, who were very nice people, apologized to me several times. I felt almost sorry for them. Daniel had no savings. He was flashy with money and spent whatever he had. Therefore, his parents initially shouldered the guarantee money. However, in the discussion, "If I marry Addison, I don't have to pay, right? Then I'll register the marriage," Daniel argued. I felt nothing but contempt for him. And for saying that, he was severely scolded by his father, John. Eventually, an infuriated John said, "You're hopeless. I'm done with you." Daniel was visibly panicked. With no job and no home, Daniel was in a dire situation. Naturally, the apartment where Daniel and I had been living was already in the process of being vacated. I think he has to leave by the end of this month. I had already arranged movers and sent my belongings to my parents' house, leaving the apartment. After that, he kept ignoring the landlord's eviction notices. Eventually, he was sued. I found out about this because the landlord contacted me. Apparently, he had stayed there for about 3 months without paying rent. He was forcibly evicted through legal proceedings. It's unlikely that he who now disowned by his parents could return to his parents' home. Jobless and homeless, his future looked bleak. I think he has hit rock bottom. And he hasn't rebuilt anything with Emily. Through a lawyer, I demanded the guarantee money from her. I offered a condition: if she didn't reconcile with Daniel, the fee would be reduced. Without hesitation, she chose not to reconcile. "I'm not interested in someone without money or a home," she declared firmly. Apparently, Daniel reached out to her several times for help, but she ignored all his attempts. She apologized to me. "I'm really sorry. Since that wedding, everyone calls me a panda. It's been tough." I think the guests spread the word. She seemed to have realized her mistakes and reflected on her actions. But no matter her remorse, she faced constant criticism. Even at her part-time job, the panda nickname got out and she quit, being laughed at behind her back. "I'm thinking of moving far away," she said. She, forced to flee due to her careless comments with Daniel. She will likely continue to be cautious about public scrutiny. A fitting punishment for her disdainful behavior. I hope she learns from this. As for me, I passed my certification exam. The qualification is for a social insurance labor consultant. Working in general affairs, dealing with payroll and entry/exit procedures, I wanted to be more knowledgeable about labor management. This will surely motivate me more in my work. Not just in work, but I've also taken a step forward in romance. After the wedding, my friends started introducing me to men, knowing I was done with parties. I was grateful for their kindness. There's one man, introduced by a friend, with whom I've become close. He's 3 years older, hardworking, and not very handsome. Rather plain-looking. He works office administration in a small to medium enterprise, nothing glamorous. After Daniel, elite and good-looking men trigger a rejection in me. So, this man feels like someone I can be myself with. It's still early to tell how it will go. But it's a step forward. I want to cherish this one step forward for the future.